Well, good morning, damn fam. Today, recording day is Wednesday, July 8th, 2026. And today we are going to talk about the Prime Minister having named four senators, causing Pierre Poilièvre, the leader of the opposition, to lose a sixth MP in a very creative way this time around. We are also going to talk about some breaking news stories about Canada getting a big win at NATO and a big development on the justice file with regard to transnational crime, particularly as it affects British Columbia, with a big announcement from the U.S. justice system affecting three gangs related to India. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. So grab your favorite bevy and make yourselves comfortable because here we go.
Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 6 and episode number 943, I believe it is, of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada, always 100% Canadian right there. And always, of course, be verific. Today, recording day is Wednesday, July 8th, 2026, and it's looking to be a nice day here at the Beaver Lodge. I see some nice blue sky and some fluffy clouds. And normally there would be a lot of sun. You can see a little bit of that on the flag, but there's a moving truck actually in the laneway next door, and it's blocking some of the sun arriving in at the time, so actually helping a little bit. All right. Um, Thank you to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and Cubs, how is your mental health doing today? I am doing rather fine, thank you. Although I am a little disappointed because I've been looking for a tennis match for the last 2 days and haven't been able to find any takers at the times that I'm available, which is kind of sad because I'm really, really anxious to get back out there and go and smack something. I got a couple of things I want to try. I'm being inspired by Wimbledon right now. So, so hopefully today I will get out on the court. But other than that, feeling fine, a little sleepy due to Beaver sweetie snoring, but we love him, so we w- we we soldier on. We soldier on. So sorry. I tried. As you know, I had the whole thing set up to be here at 7:30, and then for some reason, just a couple of maintenance things I needed to take care of today. For some reason, that just popped up today, and they're straightforward things, nothing I haven't seen before, but you just have to do from time to time. And for some reason, I needed to do. If you ever have those days where you need to do everything like 2 or 3 times for it to actually work, and there was a little something to that. Like sometimes I had to copy and paste something, and I'd go, and it was the thing that was there before that would copy and paste, and it's like, but I chose the other thing, but for somehow it didn't connect, and I needed to go back and get it, and so, all of a sudden, I'm just thinking, "Yeah, okay, now I can, like, uh, you know, by now, I can do this in about, like, 5 minutes," and it's like, 11 minutes later, I'm still at it, and it's like, "What the heck, man?" So, sorry, yeah, the not so much gremlins, just needing to do things 2 or 3 times before I actually got it right for some reason today. There are days like that. There are days like that. Fortunately, it didn't take me 3 times, pouring actually, it did take me twice pouring the cereal in my bowl this morning. Come to think of it, because I picked the wrong box the first time. I was half asleep. That's true. Oh my word. I was gonna say at least I didn't have to do it twice for my cereal, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, damn, I did." It's gonna be one of those days. But hey, clearly, giggling about it and, having a good time, so, for some reason, I find my life very amusing, so so, hey, I'm in a good mood. I'm in a good mood. Kitavi G goes, "Well, I ate a honey glazed donut for breakfast. No parmesan." Yeah, listen, I, have frequently started the day with a breakfast of champions. Let's just put it that way. So, I am not going to judge. I'm gonna say more power to you. There you go. All right. So let's see, kits and cubs. Today we have an interesting show. When I went to bed, it was going to be one thing, and woke up this morning and noticed that there was a couple more developments, a couple more serious stories. And needed to make some time in the show for them. So we're going to start with the fun stuff because, as you know, on this show we do love ourselves some Piepenfreude. And yesterday there was some, and it was kind of sweet actually. Um, the prime minister, and I saw it when we were doing the show, but there wasn't enough time to get into it. Had named new senators. I'm not sure if this is the first time that the prime minister names some senators. It could very well be, because I don't remember him naming any before. But there was a little bit more to it than the nomination of the senators. It was advertised as modernizes Senate appointment process to respond to Canada's emerging challenges. So it says here the world is changing rapidly. In response, Canada's new government is acting with urgency and ambition to build a stronger, more independent, more resilient country. That requires strong, effective, and focused representatives who can ensure Canada's institutions are equipped to respond to the challenges of the country they serve. To that end, the Prime Minister Mark Carney today announced modifications to the Senate appointment process to attract the expertise needed to tackle the challenges that will shape Canada's future. The government is expanding the criteria for new applicants to the Senate. Recruitment of candidates with enhanced focus and expertise in Canadian key strategic industries, regulatory frameworks, and emerging social and economic affairs will be added focus. The government is also removing the nonpartisanship criterion for Senate appointments. This decision recognizes the valuable contributions made by Canadians who have chosen to serve in elected office or in other partisan roles, including knowledge of the governing and legislative processes, which will contribute to a stronger, more effective Senate. In this context, Prime Minister Carney today announced that the following individuals will become senators upon confirmation of constitutional qualifications: Richard Martel for Quebec, Dr. Rodney Ouellette for New Brunswick, Thomas Pitfield for Quebec, and Geeta Tucker for Manitoba. These individuals bring a wealth of experience in the challenges and opportunities facing Canada today, including technology, artificial intelligence, business, finance, healthcare, as well as regulatory parliamentary affairs. Their expertise will strengthen the Senate's capacity to advance ambitious new legislation with scrutiny and rigor. With 5 more Senate vacancies anticipated before the end of 2026, a new independent advisory board for Senate appointments will be established in the coming days. Guided by constitutional requirements and merit-based criteria, the board will identify highly qualified candidates with diverse experience and perspectives and make recommendations to the Prime Minister. Canadians are invited to apply to serve in the Senate through an application process that will open in the coming weeks. As Canada faces an increasingly divided and uncertain world, Canadians expect their leaders to work together to meet today's challenges. By bringing together a broader range of expertise, experience, and perspectives, these changes will ensure the Senate is equipped to advance ambitious legislation that will help build a stronger future for all Canadians. Okay. And it says here, once these 4 appointments are made, there will be 6 remaining vacancies in the Senate, with 5 more anticipated by the end of the year. So therefore, if those other 6 vacancies aren't filled before the 5 more that are anticipated coming, that means 11 more in all. Let's just put it that way. Well, either way, 11 more in all. The 6 vacancies and 5 anticipated one to fill either at some point down the road. Let's see, what else does it say here? It says that in 2016, the federal government created an independent advisory board for Senate appointments to recommend merit-based candidates. The advisory board is an independent body whose mandate is to provide non-binding merit-based recommendations to the Prime Minister on Senate appointments. It consists of 3 permanent federal members and 2 members from each of the provinces or territories where a vacancy is to be filled. The advisory board is chaired by one of its federal members and is supported by the Privy Council office. I am looking in the announcement here, and it says here, by the end of 2026, a new independent advisory board for Senate appointments will be established in the coming days, and guided by constitutional requirements and merit-based criteria, the board will identify highly qualified candidates with diverse experience and perspectives. I'm not seeing what the obvious difference between the board created in 2016 and the board that is being announced that is created in 2026 is going to be, unless they by a new independent board means is that they're replacing all the board members with a new board. Maybe that's what they mean by a new independent advisory board here. Because there is already one. When I was reading this, I was thinking, well, didn't that already take place? And lower on the notes, it did say that it was. So I'm going to guess it's probably new membership, but probably I'll find out more. That was kind of interesting. So we have these 4 new senators named, and then with a couple of changes, and one of the changes is the sort of partisanship. I don't think that this means that people are going to sit in the Senate under the banner of their party. Conservatives are still doing that somewhat, but the other one, there's like the independent group and all those other types of things. I'd actually have to look them up because I actually don't know the names. So let me just look that up here. The various groups of Canadian senators. So there's the Independent Senators Group, the Conservative Senators, Canadian Senators Group, Government Representative Office, and non-affiliated senators. So I don't think anything is going to change in that sense, that the senators are not going to be sitting by parties again when they say removing the nonpartisanship portion. But there was more of a under Trudeau, a push, particularly at the beginning, to nominate people that didn't necessarily come from the world of politics, that had that had a great accomplishment and achievements in other areas, and to use their contributions as great Canadians to provide some sober second thought. It would appear that one of the bases for this is that in the process of doing that, there might have been changes in the Senate composition with regards to people who understand, who are not understand, um, but are focused on things like process in terms of ushering things through. And might need a couple more senators, perhaps from those worlds, in order to make things a little more efficient. So what was kind of not looked okay upon was leaving a function in government, either having another position in government and going directly to the Senate, uh, or having a position within the party structure and then going directly into the Senate. And in the case of two of these announcements, there are people that are going directly from government functions into the Senate. So, in terms of partisanship, one can look at it that way. Near the end of Trudeau's mandate, some would say there was some partisanship because he did name people that did uh, that were maybe former MPs or former provincial politicians. Um, but there was still a certain amount of break between the time they served and the time they became a senator. Um, so it wouldn't. So there are things of the like, right? It seems that for this particular government, and as we know, Mark Carney takes a more business approach to things, probably uh, is looking to put a certain number of senators in that might have a more business style approach to try to get some legislation through, and who might understand how the wheels are greased, right? To understand the system in order to be able to work through it better. So it kind of looks like that. Again, not sure what the clear difference is because the Senate is still somewhat a little nebulous. But opening the door to, oh, it's just a place to put your cronies into, which was some of the criticisms of the Senate before Trudeau made the changes that he made to it. Which, of course, people were saying, well, they're still liberal senators. In most cases, they are like-minded senators, but they're not necessarily, party apparatus people, right? So those types of things are now no longer going to be criteria that stop people from being named uh, as senators. Now, as we mentioned, of those four people, there are two who fall into that category of partisan appointments, and then there are two that sort of fall into the traditional type of appointments that Justin Trudeau would have made, particularly in the early days of his changes to the Senate. But according to John Paul Tasker of CBC News, it says Prime Minister Mark Carney's first Senate appointments include one of his most senior advisors. Therefore, right? Oh, yeah, just somebody from the prime minister's office and put him into the Senate. There's a highly partisan appointment, somebody that's going to do the prime minister's bidding, that type of thing, right? It opens the door to that. And a conservative MP, as he pushes to restore some partisan voices to an upper house that has been largely devoid of them for the last decade. Yes, kits and cubs, a sitting conservative MP has been moved up to the Senate. You know that song back in the day, if you're a certain age, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover? Ah, this is like 50 Ways to Leave Your Leader. Because, like, come on, man. I- Chris D'Entremont lets it slip during an interview that he's considering going. Then, there's that whole scene in his office. Michael Ma does some Christmas maxing, right? Christmas party maxing. And then all of a sudden, whoops, he's liberal. Matt Jeteru was going to go earlier, then decided he was just going to quit politics altogether. Then all of a sudden, whoops, nope, he does cross the floor. He was going to go around the same time as D'Entremont. All of a sudden, he's not quitting politics anymore. He's liberal. Then Marilyn Gladue, a through and through conservative by any definition, just up and leaves after Pierre Poilièvre uh, hands out the "Prove Yourself to Me" questionnaire, the one he used to make his most recent shuffle, which I am sure that Michael Chong will probably be better as a finance critic than Mr. Um, oh my God. Um, why don't I ever remember his name correctly? Jasraj Singhalan. I always need to think about it for a second. Um, but that all depends on Michael Chong being allowed to speak as Michael Chong and not as a megaphone for Pierre Poilievre, right? I mean, he did put someone that some people still think of as serious in that position, but mm, we're also learning, however, that that bench is not deep right now. If you're watching Aaron Gunn with that whole ethics committee thing, because they're wondering if that whole condo conversion BC thing is a bailout for developers because uh, apparently there's some way to build housing for Canadians or buy housing for Canadians that doesn't involve money going from the government to developers. It's a big unethical scandal. Who approached who called who, all that kind of stuff. Um, Listen, they'll do what they do. It says, we're going to send it to the ethics committee. And Pierre writes a big letter. And then it goes to the ethics committee, which is one of the 5 committees when you have a majority government that is chaired by the opposition. Then they announce the ethics committee has approved that we are going to discuss this. Well, of course it would. It's chaired by a conservative, taking a request from the leader of the conservatives, all for clicks and outrage. And then, of course, as expected, it gets to the committee where it would just require 2 liberals to vote against it, I guess, along with other people for it to fail. And then all of a sudden, it's, oh my God, the liberals, big bad liberals, don't want us to discuss this thing at committee. Look at this. Send us your data and send us your money. And it seems that the NDP is going to side with the conservatives on this one. So, um, anyway, we'll see what happens with that. Uh, It would not surprise me, given everything we've seen in Ontario with developers if developers did ask first. But everybody seems to be saying, the developers seem to be angry that this is even being considered in British Columbia. David Eby is giving press conferences and saying, "Well, do you guys see how angry the developers are? Clearly, they didn't come to us for this." David Eby owning it, saying, "I'm the one that approached the federal government with this." The federal government saying that Eby. So if it is true that David Eby saw the opportunity, it said, "You know what? It's just going to cost us less to buy them than it is to build them." If we get them on liquidation, and plus it helps us get people into homes earlier, then why would we make people wait? Let's just do this, right? The federal government said, sure. Province, if that's what you want to do, and that's the solution that you came up with, and it seems that there's a case for it, yeah, sure, we'll help. Because that's what we do as the federal government. This is an area at which you have jurisdiction. You found a plan. You're coming to me with a solution. I say, why not? Let's go. Let's give it a go, right? I'm not seeing where the so obviously unethical thing, right? Now, apparently, there's a big discovery about some discussion that happened 15 days before. I'm not quite on top of that yet. I just saw that in passing. So maybe there is something, who knows? But they didn't share that part at first, right? It wasn't 15 days before we just found out this requires an investigation. It was this requires an investigation. It's unethical. They goes, oh my God, look at this 15 days before. Um, which again would make one skeptical about how much of a big deal this 15 days before thing is. But again, at this point, I'm speaking from ignorance because I do not know what that new detail is. I just know that something happened. So you have this type of thing going on from the conservatives. They clearly know something is not right because normally, strategically, you would wait for the federal government to make a shuffle and you would make a shuffle to respond to what that new situation is like. But they felt the need to make a shuffle now to respond to the fact that, well, it's just not happening for Pierre. If you're looking at the polls, if you're looking at the press, if you're looking at comments from pundits, particularly from the conservative side, um, it's not happening for them. In fact, it's not happening for a lot of them. There were some critical ones looking at Danielle Smith lately as well. Um, Saying things like, Danielle Smith scores yet another goal, but my God, does she always have to do it on her own net? So it's like, oh, okay, there's an interesting take. Um, and Doug Ford, the way that he's imploding, geez, my word. Um, so there's how would you put it? Uh, with all of that going on, right? He's lost those four. Sorry, and those four, all four floor crossed. D'Entremont, Ma, Genereux, Gladue, right? And uh, one of the reasons as well is like after Gladue left, uh, there was a conversation that she had afterwards stating that, when she talked to Prime Minister Mark Carney, she had talked about what the priorities in her writing were. And he said, oh, maybe we can do something about that. And says, aha, there it is. There's the quid pro quo. That's not quid pro quo. He bribed her to join. It's tell me about your writing, right? He's interviewing her. She's interviewing him. They're sharing about the writing. And it's like, oh, well, do you have some things in your writings that are priorities of ours? We could probably help. I'm not right? So, uh, conservatives like to spin stuff in that way. So, but it was that questionnaire basically, asking conservatives to prove themselves. Talk to me about some great interviews that you did in which, you advanced the party's priorities or you made the leader look good. And like some of these people are going, like, interviews, you won't allow us to do interviews. Why are you asking us this? Right? And for Gladue, it was the last straw. So he lost those four. Then, um, just the other day, Cafe Wagenthal announced that she was going to step down at the end of August. Now, she had stated that she was going to step down at the end of this term because, it was her fourth one, and it's a significant amount of time. Um, but no reason for the change of plans. Just, I originally intended to represent the riding until the next federal election, but instead, I'm going to go now. And that's it. Followed by the necessary effusive praise for the leader. But no reason. Just that I'm right. It could just as well have easily been, I expected to my last term to be in government, and it's not. So my heart is just not in it anymore. I'm leaving. But you can't say that and then say, have effusive praise for the leader. So it's just, yeah, I'm out of here. No reason, no nothing, just up and gone. And now, Monsieur Richard Martel, conservative MP from the province of Quebec, the electoral district of Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord, he has decided that he too would rather no longer sit in Pierre Poilièvre's caucus. Presented with the opportunity to become a senator, he decided to jump ship. Oh man, I love this. According to Marco Vigliotti of iPolitics, Richard Martel is leaving the Conservative caucus after being named to the Senate as Prime Minister Mark Carney makes his first picks to the upper chamber. So this is his first nominations. Martel was one of four appointments announced on Tuesday alongside Tom Pitfield, Carney's former principal secretary, Rodney Willett of New Brunswick, and Manitoba's Gita Tucker are also headed to the Red Chamber. The Globe and Mail first reported news of Pitfield's appointment. In a statement, Carney said he was modifying the existing criteria for Senate appointments by dropping the nonpartisanship requirement and prioritizing candidates with, quote, expertise in key Canadian strategic industries, regulatory frameworks, and emerging social and economic affairs. He said removing the nonpartisanship rule recognizes, quote, the valuable contributions made by Canadians who have chosen to serve in elected office or in other partisan roles, including knowledge of the governing and legislative processes, which will contribute to a stronger, more effective Senate. Quote, for the past decade, no, not quote, pardon me. For the past decade, Senate appointments were typically based on the recommendations of what the government called an independent advisory board. Most of these appointees came from non-political backgrounds. Previous experience in partisan politics wasn't disqualifying, but the process was seen as break from the tradition of having prime ministers named party loyalists to the Senate. This shift in approach to appointments comes as Liberals have increasingly clashed with the Senate over handling of key pieces of legislation. As iPolitics first reported, government sources objected to the Senate's unsuccessful push to delay changes to the rules regulating political parties that were supported by the Liberals, Conservatives, and New Democrats, and delays in passing legislation overhauling bail laws backed by the premiers and police chiefs. Carney's office said future appointments will be handled by a new advisory board that is set to be established in the coming days. This board will use a, quote, merit-based criteria to identify candidates with, quote, diverse experience and perspectives and make recommendations to Carney, the Prime Minister's office said in a statement. These are Carney's first appointments to the Senate since becoming Prime Minister in March 2025. Martel was long rumored as a potential conservative floor crosser. Mm, 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 mm. But liberal and government sources said that was never a strong possibility, and it was more likely Martel would just resign. A government source speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal matters said all of the appointees would be named as independents and wouldn't form the basis of a long rumored government Senate caucus. Now, kits and cubs. Again, long rumored as a potential floor crosser, but liberal government sources say that was never a strong possibility. So, someone that was very unhappy in the party, but probably too conservative to ultimately wear the liberal label. So, if you can't do damage to Pierre Poilièvre by having a person leave his party to sit across the floor with you, what better next way than to have someone leave the party to sit in the Senate instead? And then have the question be whether or not he will sit within the conservative caucus in the Senate or sit among another caucus. Mm, the petty. It's finger licking good. Oh my word. Gee. The Conservatives are the only party with a traditional caucus in the Senate. The Liberals disbanded their caucus in 2014, and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau eliminated a government caucus in 2016. In a post on X, Conservative Senator in a post on X, Conservative Senate leader Leo Housakis congratulated the appointees and singled out Martel as a friend and longtime caucus colleague. Mm-hmm. Buttering him up already, aren't you, Leo? Usakas told iPolitics in a statement that he understood there's, quote, nothing standing in the way of any of the senators from joining the Conservative caucus, and Martel or anyone else, quote, would be welcomed with open arms. A conservative source speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal matters said there have been no discussions with Martel at this point. There's likely little urgency for any of new senators to make a decision on a caucus as the Senate is adjourned for the summer, and of course he has been appointed as an independent. Oh my word. And there was a change. If anybody saw this story earlier, there was an earlier version of the story that had said that Carney had informed Pierre Poilievre of the appointment on Tuesday, but it was actually Martel himself who attempted to inform the leader. And here I'm saying attempted to inform the leader, so I don't know if that attempt was done. So maybe it is possible that Poilievre found out that he lost an MP once it hit the press. Oh my word. Oh, jeez. Imagine that. Imagine that. Slip out the back, Jack. Make a new plan, Stan. Just hop on the bus, Gus. Just go all the way, Cathay. Oh my God. Yep. Wow. Jeez. One let it slip in the press. One person just left after going to both Christmas parties. The other person said he was going to resign and then changed his mind and crossed the floor. The other one said, take this job and shove it. One just said, you know what? Not into it anymore. And this one says, yeah, well, I don't like it here, but hey, if you're offering me a Senate seat, sure thing, bud. 6 MPs. Pierre Poilievre loses. 6 MPs. Wow. Um, but there's nothing wrong with the leadership. Nothing wrong with the leadership in his party. Now the sun is at the exact right spot, as you can see, right? It's like whitening out my eyes. Oh man. Uh, yeah, that is that's not great. Oh man, poor Pierre. Poor Pierre. Gee, that's a lot of hits. That's a lot of hits. Um, you know, and as I've mentioned on the show, um, how would I put it? Um, all the signs are there that he needs to go, right? All the signs are there that he needs to go. The MPs can't leave the party fast enough. The public opinion polling has tanked. He's an actual drag on his party. The gap in terms of leadership approval between the prime minister and him is still miles apart. Even with the NDP regaining ground, it's not really helping the Liberals because the NDP are gaining a lot of ground that the Conservatives actually took away from them in the previous election. Not only get some ground against Liberals. Um, the only thing that keeps them in place is that fundraising, right? The only thing that keeps him in place is his ability to fundraise, which is why that incident or that not incident, but interview, not interview, press availability that Pierre Poilièvre had the other day when he was asked when he was going to attend a Pride event, and he said he had no plans to do so. And he says, "Why? "Oh, it's just not in my plans. The plans is because the full out reason. There's no way around that. Is because Pierre needs to keep those fundraising dollars to come in. He's got to keep them coming in if he's going to remain in his position. Because if he's lost all this popularity and he's losing the fundraising dollars, then he's going to go really quickly. Because with the conservatives, it's about the money, and he certainly isn't going to um, keep the fundraising dollars coming in from the anti-trans people who donate fervently and donate often. If he shows up at a pride parade now, will he? Thus proving that, um, once again, if you are a conservative, in order to be a conservative, every other identity that you have needs to be secondary and willing to be sacrificed at the altar of being conservative, right? It's maybe not so much bigotry, although for some people it is, uh, as a more sort of just outright just sociopathic and unempathetic way of doing business, right? I mean, Pierre Poilievre, in some way, clearly has no problem with gay people, particularly given Melissa Landsman is the deputy leader of his party, and Eric Duncan has been in his inner circle from the get go. But gay, the identity can never trump, can never, ever, ever come before the conservative identity. And if that means they need to sell out their own in the process, um, they do that, as we are watching them do when it comes to their transgender brothers and sisters. We're watching it in real time, right? They'll even have a flotilla for Rainbow Railroad to raise money as their leader is going out and making pronouncements that are anti-trans, right? It the identity doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. You're conservative and everything else is sacrificed towards it, right? Sacrifice for the cause. Um, so when you're looking at that particular attitude, right, it helps you to understand a little bit more the motivations behind some of the decisions and some of the stances that they take. Coupled along with what I said previously about having no self-awareness and not caring at all what you look like and what you sound like. The whole concept of the internet is forever. And at some point, what you said today, somebody's going to take it and go, wow, there's a quote for everything and put it back in your face. It's like, it does matter, right? You can then blame it on some AI or edit it or some liberal journalist who brought that or something like that to make that go away then, right? So nothing matters. Doesn't matter how you behave, doesn't matter what you say today. You can just all make that go away with the back of your hand tomorrow. Right? That's the communications dynamic. So you don't need to have any shame if nobody's going to call you out on your shamelessness. People are just going to move on to the next question. If people are going to accept a gaslight answer and say, no, no, that's not good enough, and won't sit there and dig on it, which is the way that our news goes these days, right? You get something, you get your pat answer, and you move on to your next question, without rather than well, hey, let's unpack that, right? Um, so there has been some questioning with regard to Pierre Poilièvre. Um, we have these four Senate announcements, like we mentioned. So, Mr. Pitfield, Tom Pitfield, who is the Prime Minister's principal secretary, clearly a partisan appointment, somehow negated or balanced out with a partisan appointment of a conservative MP to the Senate instead of having the Senate raising hackles about appointed senators or too much partisanship. It's a sort of like a love-in to maybe have Mr. Martel sit within the conservative caucus within the Senate. Because if he chooses to sit with another caucus whenever that happens, that's just another time release bomb waiting to go off. That raises the questions about Pierre Poilievre's leadership again. Wow, not only could he get away from his party his caucus fast enough, he couldn't get away from his party fast enough because now he's in the Senate. He still won't sit with the conservatives. You can see that narrative, right? Develop. So there's probably going to be a lot of um, uh, operations in order to try to get him to sit within the conservative caucus, I'm sure, from the conservative side of the Senate over the course of the summer. Doesn't mean he has to declare either, but I'm sure there's going to be a full court press going on because they wouldn't want the other negative press. And then we have the other two, as we mentioned, Dr. Rodney Ouellet, who's a cancer researcher in New Brunswick, and Gita Tucker, who's an accountant in Manitoba, clearly a very accomplished one. So, like we said, people, two more sort of traditional nominees, and then two that sort of usher in sort of this sort of era where we can bring in some partisans. According to Aaron Weary, though it is perhaps not foremost on their minds when they gain power, every prime minister has the opportunity to put their stamp on the Senate. And if there was particular speculation about what Mark Carney might do in regards to Parliament's upper house, it is because Justin Trudeau's stamp on the Senate was both novel and potentially significant. In the wake of an expense scandal that brought new scorn upon the Red Chamber, and with the Supreme Court ruling that provincial consent was required to either abolish the Senate or turn it into an elected chamber, Trudeau set out more than a decade ago to establish a more independent Senate. In 2014, as leader of the Liberal Party, he abruptly ejected senators from the Liberal Parliamentary Caucus. Then, as Prime Minister, he set up an advisory board to recommend applicants with nonpartisanship listed as criteria. Prospective senators were informed that they would be required to demonstrate that they have the ability to bring a perspective and contribution to the work of the Senate that is independent and nonpartisan. Though the government maintained a small team of representatives in the Senate, the remaining senators were left beyond the Prime Minister's immediate control or authority. The result was, in broad strokes, a different kind of Senate. Trudeau's appointments, though not entirely free of partisans, were not dominated by the sorts of party loyalists and apparatchiks that previous prime ministers had sent to the Senate, and the upper chamber rediscovered some interest in asserting itself. Between 2011 and 2015, the last 4 years of Stephen Harper's time as Prime Minister, the Senate amended just a single government bill sent to it from the House of Commons. Since 2016, the Senate has amended 37 bills. Thank you, that's what it's supposed to do. But when Trudeau resigned, there was no guarantee that his reforms would be carried on. On Tuesday, Carney started to put his own stamp on the Senate with a handful of appointments and a tweak to Trudeau-era guidelines that raise at least the specter of a return to the partisan Senate of the past, though it is still possible to avoid a full return to the pre-Trudeau Red Chamber. Two of Carney's first four appointees have notably partisan backgrounds. Tom Pitfield occupied a senior role in Carney's office and has been an influential Liberal strategist for more than a decade. Trudeau and Pitfield have been friends since childhood and their fathers worked closely together. Richard Martel was, until this morning, the Conservative MP for the Quebec riding of Chicoutimi-Lafiard. Earlier this year, Conservative leader Pierre Poilièvre publicly appealed to Carney to appoint more Conservative senators, but he might not have imagined the Prime Minister would be choosing from his Conservative MPs. Be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. You just might get it. Whatever their histories, both will apparently sit as independents, at least initially. In announcing the appointments, the Prime Minister's office said the government would be maintaining an independent advisory body, but that it would be expanding the criteria for new applicants to the Senate. For one thing, quote, recruitment of candidates with enhanced focus and expertise in key Canadian strategic industries, regulatory frameworks, and emerging social and economic affairs will be an added focus. But the Carney government will also be, quote, removing the nonpartisanship criterion for Senate appointments. What that might mean in practice is not immediately clear. While Trudeau's focus was on an independent, nonpartisan Senate, that did not amount to a full ban on anyone who had ever participated in partisan politics. Among his first appointees in 2016 was Francis Lankin, who had been an NDP MPP and cabinet minister in Ontario, and Peter Harder, who had been an advisor in Brian Mulroney's progressive conservative government in the 1980s. I think he had also been clerk of the Privy Council. Near the end of his time as Prime Minister, Trudeau put former Liberal MP Roger Cuzner and former Ontario Liberal MPP Sandra Pupatello in the Senate. But it's still true that Trudeau largely opted for Canadians with exemplary careers outside partisan politics and moved away from the long tradition of using Senate appointments to reward loyal Liberal partisans. Just as important, by the time Trudeau was done, the vast majority of senators were unaffiliated with the party caucus. At present, only 11 Conservative senators remain as a link to the Senate's pre-Trudeau existence. Carney is not moving to invite senators back into the Liberal Parliamentary Caucus, but Tuesday's announcement at least suggests he might be more willing than Trudeau to put prominent partisans in. If the Senate has gained any credibility in the last decade, if there's been any meaningful improvement in its ability to act as a check on the government, then there is some reputational risk if the Senate returns to being a place that is synonymous with cushy patronage. And Carney moves on Tuesday may well raise concerns about such a future. It does for me. But a lot still depends on what the Prime Minister does next. Harder, who served as the government's representative in the Senate from 2016 to 2020 and authored a 51-page discussion paper in 2018 on the upper chamber's role, says he does not see Carney's changes to the application process as a reversal of Trudeau's reforms. Instead, Harder sees an acknowledgement that political experience is helpful in a legislative body, even an appointed one. In the past, Harder says he advocated behind the scenes for more senators with legislative experience, and he hopes some new senators join the Conservative Senate caucus. Two of Trudeau's appointees already have, which Harder believes has still played a valuable role over the last 10 years. The idea of an independent Senate would actually be threatened, Harder said, if senators were invited back into the Liberal caucus. The Senate, Harder contends, has been doing well to fulfill its constitutional responsibility. At a minimum, it has not been mired in scandal. he expresses some concern with the number of bills that senators are introducing themselves, insofar as such initiatives might take time and energy away from studies by Senate committees. But Harder thinks the Senate has authored several studies that have positively contributed to public debate, and he believes the Senate is usefully scrutinizing legislation without being a roadblock to the will of the House of Commons. Quote, it is an improved institution. It's operating effectively. It provides the constitutional role effectively in terms of oversight of government legislation, Harder says. It's not a rubber stamp, but nor is it an obstacle to the government achieving what they wish. Grumbles from within the government that the Senate is not moving fast enough to pass legislation have bubbled up in various recent reports, but such complaints are perhaps as old as the Senate itself. Harder says that when he became the government's representative in the Senate, a former government Senate leader told him to tell Trudeau's ministers not to complain about the pace with which legislation was moving in the Senate because nothing would more irritate senators. Notably, in recent announcements, the appointment of a new Governor General, a process to rebuild the official residence at 24 Sussex, Carney has expressed a reverence for Canada's institutions and a belief that leaders have a responsibility to maintain those institutions. And so, whatever he does next, Carney might be mindful of not only his own interests, but also the long term interests of a potentially important institution. So, that was from Adam Weary with regard to the Senate here. With regard to Poilièvre and the Conservatives having lost a sixth MP, there have been a decent amount of commentary recently from various sources related to the Conservative Party that seem to indicate that people are wondering about Pierre Poilievre's future as leader of the party. And also from some public opinion pollsters. Nick Nanos, I believe it was, had been asked point blank about Pierre Poilievre and whether or not there was anything in the numbers that were indicating in any way, shape, or form that things were changing for him. And it was like, no, just there's absolutely no evidence of that for him. There was also Fred Delory at one point who made some comments. And those comments also seemed to indicate or question whether or not Pierre Poilievre actually wanted to be prime minister. Because if that is the case, it's not showing in the strategies that he is adopting. For example, some of the stuff we've been seeing with Jamil Javani lately, referring to liberals as degenerates and not doing anything about that, probably has something to do with that. That lady that he claims he met, that told him that she moved to Mexico because she felt safer there than she felt here, who apparently has come out and said, yes, I am. I actually am real and I exist. But Pierre Poilievre taking that opportunity to say, you know, there's this woman who told me this. And while that may be true for her, right, it's not a representative sample and it certainly doesn't match with the data. So he could have chosen in that moment to validate the fear that that creates, or say, I met somebody who did that. Yes, and clearly this person has had a personal experience that made her feel that. But the reality is if you look at our data, you are much safer in right? He could have done that instead, right? But he basically decided that he was going to use, because he uses people, he was going to use their story and make some hay out of it. And then when people weren't buying him or doubting him, then he turned around and said things like, you know, um, the liberals are trying to silence this woman. And it's like, liberals couldn't be trying to silence this woman. Nobody knew who she was at the time. They were questioning his tale because he tends to be a fabulist. And as we keep on saying, Pierre's not so much a policy wonk as he is a storyteller, and most of his stories are not true. Turns out this one was true, that he did meet somebody. And somebody told him that. Okay. But does that mean that you then take that story and you use it as something that's representative? I met one woman who told me that her experience is such that she feels safer in Mexico than she felt over here. Aren't things so terrible here? One person told me that it was. So this is what it is, Canada. Or, despite her personal experience, here are the facts. And then you can say, you know, these statistics are still too high and we need to do more, and then criticize the government for maybe not doing enough or not doing it fast enough or whatever. But at least acknowledge the reality, for the love of everything that is somewhat holy. That factually and objectively, one is safer at home. But Pierre could not do that. Here is the comment from Nick Nanos with regard to how Pierre Poilièvre is doing in public opinion surveys.
And Mark Carney has I think it's about a 24-point advantage over Pierre Poilièvre when we ask Canadians who they would prefer as Prime Minister.
So despite that gap that you pointed out, are we seeing any meaningful progress from Poilièvre?
No, not really. The Conservative numbers are flat, and Pierre Poilièvre's numbers. And Mark.
So the Conservatives' numbers are flat, and Pierre Poilièvre's numbers are flat. Just no. Not really. Nothing's happening for him. And when it's said that plainly, right? That was from June 27th. Here. There was also Pierre Poilièvre objecting to action being taken at 24 Sussex to bring it back into shape. And of course, we had Stephen Harper coming out of the woodwork to applaud the Prime Minister for taking position on this, which again puts Pierre Poilièvre in a very interesting situation. And here's some commentary from Rob Breckenridge with regard to that, which again makes people a little bit wonder about Pierre.
Not surprisingly, of course, the leader of the opposition has come out being critical of this decision, saying that this is the last thing on Canadians' minds. There's been concerns around affordability. What do you make of that argument?
Well, it's interesting, the contrast between what Pierre Poilièvre said and actually what Stephen Harper said, a statement from Stephen Harper applauding the Prime Minister for finally taking action on this. So, you know, for Pierre Poilièvre and I guess also Andrew Scheer previously, who both lived at Stornoway, it's kind of curious to see them, you know, hammering the Prime Minister over wanting to fix this Prime Minister's residence, And for the Conservatives who have sort of taken up this mantle of this cause of preserving Canadian history, and why are we toppling or taking down these statues, and all of this history matters. I mean, this seemed like a real opportunity for them to sort of lead the charge on that. Like, this is part of it too, and this does matter, and it should matter. And it's unfortunate that it got to this point where it's just such a mess. And unfortunately, it is going to cost a lot to fix this.
Not surprised.
So there again, people just not understanding the moves that he is making here. And just in the newscaster alone, right? Not surprisingly, Pierre is against this. That already says a lot. I'm just saying, that says a lot. So yeah, and as we mentioned before, we had Fred Delory making certain comments of the type as well. Wondering what it is that his objective was here, what it is that he is trying to do. We also had that video that we showed you the other day, made by Stephen Guilbeault, that had Pierre Poilièvre talking to a bust of John A. Macdonald. This was something he did last year, asking the bust of John A. Macdonald whether or not a railroad from coast to coast is something that could get approved today. And cut with him right next saying that he's going to, he would vote against Alto, and if he becomes the government, he would actually stop the project. Then we had the Conservative Party recently release AI-generated ads. Which was kind of odd, because you have the Conservatives complaining, left, right, and center, how there are no jobs. But if you're making your ads AI generated and you're having people playing the role of Canadians, and you don't actually want to pay Canadians, actors, to play the role of Canadians in commercials, and you're just going to have everything be AI generated, don't come and tell me that you're caring about Canadian jobs. If you're a Canadian political party and you're making ads, the ads should actually feature real Canadians, either ones that agreed to do it for free, or if you have a scenario type commercial, that you actually pay Canadian actors and Canadian film crews to put it together. I'm just saying, it's really hard to make the case that you care about people going hungry when you act as if it's beneath you to hire and pay people to act and pose for the produce. To act in, to pose, and to produce your ads. They just keep on stepping in it over and over and over and over again. And then you have other articles that are coming out. And the one that typically comes out every now and then, it's like once a quarter, somebody has to post something. And it's Pierre Poilièvre was right about everything. But once every 3 months, somebody posts it. And this one came out from Post Media News, July 6th. And I want to put it up on the screen for you because tell me what you see if I put it on the screen for you. It says Pierre Poilièvre was right about everything. Editorial. What do you see? 2-minute read. Now, if you were writing an editorial about someone having been right about everything, do you think you would have more to write about it than something that would take 2 minutes to read? No name, just Post Media News. By the way, quote, while the Liberals and liberal media will never admit it, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was right, and the Liberals were wrong during Canada's economic decade of neglect from 2015 to 2025. On the sudden liberal enthusiasm for pipelines, albeit in a country where they smothered them under so many regulations and constraints that you can't build one in Canada today without massive government subsidies. Poilievre was right on the substance of the issue years ago. For that, he endured years of ridicule from the Justin Trudeau Liberals on energy policy, Liberals who defended the absurdity of the world's fourth largest producer of oil and fifth largest producer of natural gas undermining its own economy by keeping all but a trickle of it landlocked in an energy-hungry world, selling it at huge discounts to the Americans. Ah, boy. Tell you. Today's absurdity is that the main impediments that stand in the way of Canada moving at speeds not seen in generations to build new infrastructure, which Prime Minister Mark Carney says is vital too. For some reason, there's a big pop-up that comes and blocks the last sentence. Something, so I can't read it to you. But Carney's epiphany on pipelines is only one example of the Liberals' many conversions on the road to Damascus. Other issues where Poilievre, the Conservatives, led the way and Carney Company followed include ending the consumer carbon tax after they poisoned the public mood against it, not because the tax itself was a bad thing. It was actually judged one of the most economically effective and low-cost bureaucratically ways in order to do it. Bringing in a middle-class tax cut, Poilievre's would have been bigger. That's actually not true. That's actually not true. First of all, every political party always thinks about bringing in a middle-class tax cut. That's not so much a conservative idea. And Pierre Poilievre's initial proposed tax cut would have been bigger. But if you remember, on the night of the second or the first debate, just before that, Pierre Poilievre released his costing platform, the one that got him laughed out of the country because it was so ridiculous. And there he made some changes to his tax cut policy that would have made his tax cut smaller than the one the Liberals were offering. The Liberals offered one that was smaller than the Conservatives initially. And then the Conservatives, a couple of days before the vote, just quietly came in and changed their policy and made it smaller than the Liberals one. And killing the capital gains tax hike. Then there was reducing the massive Liberal surge in immigration levels, which led to a national housing crisis, as Poilievre accurately predicted. Justin Trudeau actually made the cuts that have led to the current situation now where we have negative population growth. Postponing EV mandates, bail reform, and cutting the GST for new home buyers. Again, cutting GST for new home buyers is hardly a new thing. It's like cutting a gas tax. It just comes up pretty much often. How sincere the Liberals will be in delivering on policies they previously mocked is an open question. But why would they change? The Liberals have become Canada's most successful political parties, in charge of the country 70% of the time since the 1900s, by lacking principles of their own and borrowing from the left and right as needed. Or one could say by keeping their ear on the ground and listening to the shifting public mood and shifting along with it. But I mean, if you have to look at reality through the darkest lens possible and make everything sound ominous, well, then I guess that's how you could describe it. By contrast, Poilievre, according to the polls, is a classic example of a political prophet mocked in his own land. That said, it's a good thing he's around to tell Liberals what to think before they think it. I'm old enough to remember a political campaign in which Pierre Poilièvre came up a couple times with 6 and 7 and 5-point plans that were a rehash of everything that the Liberals had been saying for the 3 weeks previous. But sure, Carney's the one stealing all of the conservative ideas, and conservatives are not stealing any liberal ideas at all. You're just mad that Carney's a better conservative than your guy is. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. So, yeah, um, they came up with that regularly scheduled fluffing of the leader, but of all people, yesterday, um, Brian Lilly had a comment call him out. Does Pierre Poilièvre actually want to be prime minister? I want Pierre Poilièvre to be Canada's next prime minister, but I'm beginning to question whether he wants the job. Poilièvre continues to go out of his way to alienate different fractions of the conservative movement and pick unnecessary fights with people who should be his allies. On Saturday, at his Stampede barbecue in Calgary, Poilièvre used his introduction of newly elected BC Conservative Party leader Carrie Lynn Findlay to take a shot at Ontario Premier Doug Ford and his team. The future Premier of British Columbia, Carrie Lynn Findlay, way to go, fresh off a big win against Liberal lobbyists from out east, Poilièvre said. That was a direct shot at Corey Teneycke, the man who has run Doug Ford's last 3 election victories in Ontario and who managed Caroline Elliott's campaign in the BC Conservative leadership race. Elliott finished second to Findlay. It was also a drive-by smear of the many people who had previously worked to elect Poilièvre as Conservative leader and as Prime Minister, who would go on to work on Elliott's campaign. Smearing those stalwarts of his previous team like Anthony Koch or Ben Woodfinden was a small price for Poilièvre to pay to get in a dig at Teneycke and Ford, which is what I was saying before, right? Like, you know, there's a sociopathic element to what Pierre does, and anything and anyone is fine as collateral damage, so long as he gets the shot in. It's like you can't have a person like that lead. Teneycke, whatever some may think of him, is a conservative. He served as Stephen Harper's director of communications, helped run Harper's 2015 election campaign, managed Maxime Bernier's conservative leadership bid in 2017, and has been active in conservative politics since the late 1990s. He is also an old friend of Poilièvre and his former campaign manager, Jenny Byrne, although that relationship is likely strained at this point. In fact, I know it's strained. Shortly after Elliott lost the BC Conservative leadership race, Conservative MPs spent a good amount of time at one of their weekly caucus meetings discussing how happy they were that Corey lost. It wasn't about Elliott, it wasn't about Findlay, it was that Corey lost, and Poilièvre took part in all of this. Caucus time is precious, and anyone who has been in these meetings will tell you it is rarely wasted in this fashion. Poilièvre's decision to use his Stampede barbecue speech to pick a fight with Ford and his team by branding them liberals is beyond stupid. It damages his efforts to unseat Mark Carney. Instead of mending fences, as Poilièvre's current chief of staff and campaign manager Steve Outhouse promised earlier this year, Poilièvre is making matters worse. In the election where Poilièvre lost to Carney's Liberals and lost his own seat, he either froze out or alienated Doug Ford, Jean Charest, Patrick Brown, Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, Peter MacKay, and others, and particularly people that had economics backgrounds, but from the province of Quebec. People who could have helped him secure victory in 2025 were effectively told their help wasn't needed. The campaign was all about Pierre. That worked when he was 20 points ahead in the polls. Well, I guess it didn't, now did it? It didn't work once the Liberals changed leaders and Carney started winning over former Conservative voters. It may feel good for Poilièvre to take shots at Ford and his team. It may energize the base and excite the online influencers who have surrounded him. It does nothing, however, to help him win the next election. Poilièvre supporters love to claim Ford isn't a conservative, that he's really a liberal. They call him all kinds of names, something they have in common with some of Poilièvre's senior advisors who have spent years coming to Toronto and publicly mocking Ford as Comrade Doug. Yes, because it's all about the purity test now. It's not about policy. It's are you pure? The rift between Ford and Poilièvre goes back much further than anything tonight said during the last election. Ford called Poilièvre after he won the Conservative leadership. Poilièvre never called back. He would come to Toronto without calling or meeting Ford, while his lieutenants openly attacked the premier whenever they were in town. Unsurprisingly, word got back to Ford and his team. Had Poilièvre reached out at any point, Ontario's premier, a politician who has won 3 majority governments, would have helped him. So what if Doug Ford isn't the same kind of conservative they have in Alberta? Conservatives in Quebec are different, and Poilièvre doesn't pick fights with them. Conservatives in Atlantic Canada are further to the red side than Ford, yet Poilièvre and his team don't claim they aren't real conservatives. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. They maybe don't single them out, but when they claim that anybody else that is not even as far to the red side as them are not real conservatives, then they're they hear that call. But they do that with Ford, even though it hurts their chances at the ballot box. With his comments on the weekend, Poilièvre has also angered and alienated some of his most loyal supporters who worked directly for him. Why? All to score a cheap political dig at a guy Poilièvre should be asking for help. Yes, because today's conservatives believe that a lame dunk is as good as a solid argument. It's that simple. Poilièvre needs to decide whether he wants to be smug and right in his own mind or whether he wants to win elections. Right now, it's not clear that he wants to win elections. And that's just one of like a few articles of that type that I have been reading over the past little while here, Kits and Cubs, wondering more and more about whether or not Poilièvre has the stuff for the job. One needs to wonder. I mean, we've said it from the get-go that he doesn't. And he's just been proving it more and more ever since. If we are looking at federal poll numbers from 338, again, things are relatively stable and are traveling within a range, but we are, like last week, a 10-point spread between the Liberals and the Conservatives, with it getting a little wider for the Liberals, but still in like the tenths of percentage, so nothing statistically too significant. And we are looking at the seat projections. Last week was 207 to 102, and now it is 208 to 101, so an extra 2-seat gain based on last week, and a second week in a row gain from recent lows not seen since about April 2026. So basically, between, looking here, between March 8th, 2026, actually, so it would be lows not seen between March 8th, 2026. The Liberals, and today, the Liberals keep vacillating between 201 to 221 seats, and the Conservatives from 94 to about 105 seats in that period, or 108 seats or so in that period. So there's a sort of new steady trend that is kind of emerged here, with the NDP still showing that if an election were held today, they might just get official party status with 12. The Bloc gradually decreasing from 31 that they were holding at the beginning of the year to now 20 there. And the Greens holding at 2 if an election were to be held today. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but provincially, I think I mentioned it on one of the breaking news shows, but provincially in Prince Edward Island, polling is showing that if an election were held today, that the Greens provincially would win a majority on Prince Edward Island. So things are changing there. And in Nova Scotia, things are indicating right now that Claudia Chender is NDP. If an election would be held today, that they might emerge victorious there. So when we're looking from coast to coast to coast, especially when we're looking at those Angus Reid numbers, where three of the least popular premiers in Ontario, in Canada, were conservative. Not sure what Danielle Smith's numbers would be looking like after the last few weeks of things, because she's had those big announcements. But and in British Columbia too, now that the Davy just scored that big deal with the Prime Minister. But in Nova Scotia, the tide has definitely seemed to turn against Tim Houston. And in Ontario, we know that public opinion polling indicates that if an election were held today, Doug Ford would still win a minority. But if other parties could get together, they can deny him the chance to govern. And that hasn't been the case for quite a while in Ontario. So, right, provincially, even a lot of Canadians are thinking that maybe it's time that some other conservative-leaning governments may not be the ones that that they need by their sides to keep going further. So, yeah, just some interesting news here with regard to Pierre Poilièvre and the Conservative Party with regard to Senate appointments and all that kind of stuff, and how the Prime Minister is particularly clever. And one of those things I wanted to mention to you about the Prime Minister being particularly clever as well is that Monsieur Martel is not just any MP, right? He's a Quebec Conservative MP, and we've been hearing for quite some time now that there has been some grumbling among them. I think there are 10 to 12 MPs from the province of Quebec who are conservative. But this guy is from Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord, and if we are looking at 338.ca, kits and cubs, we might discover something that is a little interesting. If we look here at recent electoral history, it has been a relatively safe conservative seat, with the Conservatives taking it 35.7 to 35 against the Bloc Québécois in 2019, taking it 40.4% to 34.1% over the Bloc Québécois in 2021. But in 2025, the most recent election, it was Conservative 34.1, Bloc Québécois 31.2, Liberals 31.1. So the margin between first and third place was 3%. The projection right now is 33% Conservative, 32% Liberal, 29% Bloc, with plus margin error between 6 or 7, which means this one is a complete and total toss-up, and one that could be up for grabs, and one that will clearly have to go to a by-election within 6 months. So even though Mr. Martel didn't cross the floor, by going to the Senate and vacating a seat that is definitely up for grabs as a by-election is coming along, and Pierre Poilièvre is not impressing at all in Quebec, this might still end up being one permanent lost seat for the Conservatives yet again. And maybe, will that be the nail that finally goes through the coffin and puts an end to Poilièvre? Or does he still have to lose more? They chose wisely. They chose wisely. It might be a two-step process to gain that seat away from the Conservatives. But the important part, ensuring that the seat is vacant, has been taken care of. I'm just saying. I am just saying. Man. Kit Saucy says here, Tim Houston fucked with Nova Scotia and our weed. He ruined himself and will be out the next election. Making targeted fines against Indigenous communities was a big mistake. Also forgetting rural. Indeed. Okay, big news that we heard from NATO, kits and cubs. And if you remember, we had talked a little bit about it yesterday in the context of submarines and satellites. But we had been mentioning a whole bunch of purchases that the Canadian government has made, right? The over the horizon with Australia, all the stuff that we're doing with our space pads, the low orbit satellite constellations that we want to put up, the sensors that we do want to put in our water so that we can monitor what's going on there, that would connect with satellites, whole bunch of stuff, right? Um, and one of those things was the Global Eye project, which is a multi-role airborne early warning and control platform from Swedish defense and security company Saab that is mounted on board Bombardier Global 6,000 to 6,500 long-range business jets. So Swedish technology on a Canadian plane. And Canada decided to go with that some time ago for its own fleet. I think it was May 27th, Canada announced that it had entered negotiations with Sweden's Saab on a deal to buy its Global Eye airborne early warning aircraft, and that Saab had beat out the US Boeing and L3 Harris in a bid that would see the planes used by the Royal Canadian Air Force for domestic and overseas flights, particularly for surveillance in the Arctic. So we did this on May 27th. Well, while at the NATO summit, this happened yesterday. NATO has made it official, announcing Tuesday that it intends to acquire up to 10 Saab manufactured Global Eye early warning surveillance aircraft in a plan that has important implications for Canada. Secretary General Mark Rutte said at the outset of this year's Leaders Summit in Ankara, Turkey, that Western Military Alliance will open formal negotiations with the Swedish company in order to secure the planes. The alliance had previously signaled it was looking at the high-tech jet as a replacement for NATO's existing fleet of aging Boeing E-3 AWACS. Root said 11 countries, including Canada, are banding together in a joint procurement effort. The Global Eye, quote, will provide enhanced detection and tracking of complex threats, including drone swarms, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles. The aircraft will strengthen NATO's situational awareness and support operations, the alliance said in a statement. The early warning system is built on a Bombardier 6500 executive jet with Saab radar and sensors. The jet is manufactured at the company's plant in Toronto. In late May, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced Canada intended to buy up to 6 Global Eyes and also opened a separate set of contract negotiations. The Royal Canadian Air Force had planned to acquire surveillance aircraft for both domestic and overseas operations. Chief among Canada's concerns, though, is surveillance of the Arctic. Defense Minister David McGuinty praised the announcement. I think it's a very big step forward. It indicates that there's an interest in a product that Canada is looking at building, McGuinty said on the sidelines of the NATO summit. He added that the National Defense Department is continuing to work through engineering details of incorporating the Global Eye into the Canadian military. One of the issues they're grappling with is how to securely connect the surveillance plane to Canadian and American F-35 encryption links. The Carney government will have to convince the Trump administration and the Pentagon to share a key piece of technology that allows fighter jets and early warning systems to communicate while maintaining stealth. Experts have cast doubt on whether or not the United States will allow a high-tech data link used exclusively on F-35 fighters to be installed on either the early warning aircraft or the Gripen E if Canada chooses to buy that warplane. The president of Saab said in a statement that the Global Eye will significantly improve NATO's ability to detect threats. We are confident that Global Eye is the right choice for the alliance, delivering proven capability, adaptability, and long-term operational advantage, said Michael Johansson. Today's announcement clearly positions Global Eye as the world-leading solution for advanced airborne early warning and control. We look forward to the next steps in the negotiations. The decision on the first day of the NATO summit ran the risk of drawing the ire of US President Donald Trump. He has often criticized European allies for relying too heavily on the US to defend the continent, while pressing them to boost defense spending and buy more US equipment. So, looks like the plane that we bought for ourselves for early warning surveillance is now going to be adopted by NATO itself as its plane. So if NATO intends to acquire 10 and we are building 6, For ourselves, that means 16. And if they are being all built in Canada, that is a big contract for us. And of course, that can mean that more will be acquired eventually as well. This contract could grow. So that is very significant. And once again, shows that maybe NATO did listen to Donald Trump when he said that he wanted it to be a little more independent, because now if NATO has a whole fleet of early warning surveillance aircraft that is not American made and is not linked in to the American fighter jet system, because that will depend on America doing that. That also offers us some security, because if you remember in that interview with Ambassador Doucheface, when he was indicating that if we made decisions that were not necessarily could not necessarily be integrated with the American military, that would be a problem. But if we make decisions that can't be integrated with the American military, but that are integrated with the overall broader NATO alliance, that becomes less of a problem, at least for us. Just saying. Because I was reading some article today that seems to indicate that some things have changed within NATO, given again with global warming and everything, that Canada and the United States were pretty much responsible to take care of the North American flank of NATO. And, Europeans wouldn't come to help us all that too much with that. But now that, um, there are designs on Greenland coming from the United States, and that part will not be said aloud. But what Russia has been doing, and given that more waters are navigable, maybe it is again in the interests of a collection of countries like the Nordics and the Baltics and whatnot to get together a little bit and ensure its own security. So yeah, very interesting theory here. According to Murray Brewster, I think I mentioned that. I'm not sure if I gave Murray Brewster credit for this article that I'm reading right now, but I will do that now. Ruta said 11 countries, including Canada, are branding together in a joint procurement effort. The Global Eye will provide enhanced detection and tracking of complex threats, including drone swarms, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles. The aircraft will strengthen NATO situational awareness and support operations, the alliance said in a statement. The early warning system is built on a Bombardier 6500 executive jet with Saab radar and sensors. The jet is manufactured at the company's plant in Toronto. In late May, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced Canada intended to buy up to 6 Global Eyes and also opened a separate set of contract negotiations. The Royal Canadian Air Force had planned to acquire surveillance aircraft for both domestic and overseas operations. Chief among Canada's concerns, though, is surveillance of the Arctic. Defense Minister David McGuinty praised the announcement. I think it's a very big step forward. It indicates that there's an interest in a product that is Canadian, that Canada is looking at building, McGuinty said on the sidelines of the NATO summit. He added that the National Defense Department is continuing to work through engineering details of incorporating the Global Eye into the Canadian military. Did I read all of this already? I can't remember at the moment. Oh well, if I did, I'm sorry. I'm doing it again. One of the issues they're grappling with is how to securely connect the surveillance plane to Canadian and American F-35 encryption links. The Carney government will have to convince the Trump administration and the Pentagon to share a key piece of technology that allows fighter jets and early warning systems to communicate while maintaining stealth. I did do that, but there was an end bit that I did miss. Experts have cast doubt on whether the United States will allow a high-tech data link used exclusively on F-35 fighters to be installed on either the early warning aircraft or the Gripen E if Canada chooses to buy that warplane. The president of Saab said in a statement that Global Eye will significantly improve NATO's ability to detect threats. We are confident that Global Eye is the right choice for the alliance, delivering proven capability, adaptability, and long-term operational advantage, said Michael Johansson. Today's announcements clearly positions Global Eye as the world-leading solution for advanced airborne early warning and control. We look forward to the next steps in the negotiations. And yes, so I did read all of that before, and I thought I hadn't. So I'm sorry for having repeated myself there, kids and cubs. But there you go. That would be, like I said, a big feather in our cap at that meeting. And seeing here if the Prime Minister happened to mention anything about this. Let's see here. says that Prime Minister secures new defense partnerships at the NATO summit. And it says here, Mark Carney concluded his participation at the 2026 NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey. At the summit, Canada and our allies signed a joint declaration reaffirming their commitment to NATO and to transatlantic security. Canada is on a clear path to meet NATO's target of investing 5% of GDP in defense by 2035. We are moving fast, making ambitious and strategic defense investments, including a new submarine fleet, the world's second largest fleet of icebreakers, and new aircraft, missiles, and cyber defenses. To strengthen collective defense and security, Prime Minister Carney announced a series of new investments and initiatives to build up domestic and allied defense industrial capacity, reinforce deterrence along NATO's eastern flank, support Ukraine, and mobilize private capital in support of shared security priorities. In Turkey, the Prime Minister underlined new defense partnerships and contracts that will catalyze growth in the private sector, including an agreement in principle with Telesat for ESCPP let's try this again. An agreement in principle with Telesat for ESCPP to utilize Telesat Lightspeed to provide sovereign, reliable, and continuous military satellite communications in the Arctic, expected to result in a multi-billion-dollar investment in Canada's defense sector. An approximately $8 million contract with Norwegian company Kongsberg Defence and Aerospace to produce Joint Strike Missiles, a type of long-range missile which will be integrated into future fighter aircraft for the Royal Canadian Air Force. An updated procurement strategy for the light utility vehicle project to immediately limit the tender to 2 Canadian defense industry suppliers to deliver 1,600 to 2,100 vehicles and 400 to 500 light utility trailers for the militarized portion of the Canadian Armed Forces fleet. To further reinforce the alliance's capabilities, grow the transatlantic industrial base, and support cutting-edge innovative defense and dual-use companies, Prime Minister Carney announced that Canada has agreed to open technical negotiations to join the NATO Innovation Subfund. This aims to develop emerging and advanced technologies that are important for NATO's defense and security while giving Canadian innovators opportunities to access capital, strategic networks, and transatlantic markets. And Canada will host the 2027 NATO Industry Forum to strengthen cooperation between allies and industry to advance defense innovation and industrial capacity across NATO. To deepen trade and commercial ties with NATO allies and to create new partnerships for Canadian workers and businesses, the Prime Minister announced the launch of negotiations with Germany towards a Canada-Germany Strategic Partnership Agreement. As Canada's largest trading partner in the EU, the Canada-Germany Partnership supports careers across Canada. The partnership agreement will bring together cooperation across key priorities, including security and defense, technology, investment, supply chains and raw materials, energy, and space, under one umbrella with concrete projects and commitments to shape and advance cooperation in the years to come. And the launch of negotiations with Turkey on a comprehensive Canada-Turkey free trade agreement, with bilateral trade between Canada and Turkey reaching $4.3 billion in 2025. The agreement will unlock significant opportunities for businesses, workers, and investors in both countries. The Prime Minister announced the extension of the Canadian-led Operation Reassurance until 2031, including plans to increase Canada's persistently deployed personnel to up to 2,600. As Canada's largest overseas mission, Operation Reassurance helps deter Russian aggression on NATO's eastern flank and fortifies our shared defense. The Prime Minister also confirmed that Canada will join Latvia and Denmark as the third framework nation of Multinational Division North, taking on more responsibility to protecting NATO's eastern flank. And that's something that I've heard a lot about as well, especially the Baltic nations looking to talking about Canada a lot more like we're one of them in a kind of way, which is it's kind of nice to hear. Building on successful negotiations with international partners in Montreal this spring, Prime Minister Carney welcomed support from 8 countries for the Defense, Security and Resilience Bank. Canada is helping lead the establishment of this new multilateral financial institution that will mobilize and deploy private capital quickly to bolster collective security. As the future host of its headquarters, this Canada-led bank will provide long-term, low-cost financing for defense, security, and resilience initiatives across supply chains, helping government and small and medium-sized enterprises address critical financing gaps. The DSRB will also, let's try that again. The DSRB will also spur significant job creation across member countries, with new orders for business in defense industries and new partnerships in emerging sectors from AI and quantum to space and cyber. Prime Minister Carney announced that a portion of Canada's previously announced commitment of approximately $2 billion in military assistance for Ukraine will support urgent and critical requirements, including $475 million for ammunition, including $75 million to deliver extended range rounds through the Czech Ammunition Initiative, and $400 million to source over 39 million rounds of various caliber ammunition from Canadian industry. Nearly $400 million to build 35 Canadian-made armored combat support vehicles to sustain Ukrainian frontline combat units, $50 million to provide critical information technology and engineering equipment to Ukraine. Canada has been among Ukraine's top supporters in the face of Russia's aggression, committing over $25.5 billion in multifaceted assistance to Ukraine since 2022, including over $8.5 billion in military assistance. At the 2026 NATO summit, Prime Minister Carney met with the Secretary General of NATO and leaders from Denmark, Finland, Germany, Hungary, Iceland, Latvia, North Macedonia, the Netherlands, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Sweden, Turkey, the United Kingdom, and Ukraine. These meetings focused on advancing cooperation on shared defense and security priorities, including strengthening allied capabilities, supporting Ukraine's self-defense, and restoring safe and unrestricted shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Canada entered this NATO summit on a clear upward trajectory, rapidly increasing defense spending and building the capabilities and infrastructure needed to defend ourselves and our allies. Through new investments, deeper defense industrial partnerships, strengthened support for Ukraine, and an expanded role in reinforcing NATO's eastern flank, Canada is delivering on its commitments and helping build a stronger, more secure alliance. Canada will continue to prioritize investments in the Arctic as part of its ongoing work to strengthen collective defense, defend transatlantic security, and protect the values that unite us. So that is a bit of a readout of everything that had been accomplished there. There are plenty of other readouts from the event. As we mentioned, there's one with Volodymyr Zelensky that we read yesterday. And then after that, there was a statement by Chancellor Friedrich Merz and Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store of Norway. And then meeting with the Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen, with the President of Latvia, Edgars Rinkēvičs, and then a joint statement from the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, on defense financing. So a lot of stuff going on. Hopefully we'll have more time to bring some of that to you in future shows to discuss what other specifics may have happened, but it seems like it was an extremely productive summit for Canada. All right, last but not least today on the topics that we wanted to share about, this one will just be very brief. We'll probably get back into it on another show because this is a story that we have been following particularly closely. But has to do with transnational repression, particularly as it's being experienced in British Columbia, and our relationship with the government of India. And it seems that there has been a situation where in the United States, the Justice Department has made quite a significant number of arrests. And I will read this here for you. This is from the Justice Department, the government of the United States itself. Law enforcement in the United States, Canada, and Europe have arrested 24 defendants, 11 of them in California, connected to 3 India-based transnational organized crime groups charged with a litany of criminal acts, including the assassination in Canada in 2023 of a prominent Indian political and religious figure, the Justice Department announced today. That person was identified by initials, but would appear to be Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Today's law enforcement in action, Operation Hardball, is the result of a years-long federal investigation into Indian crime syndicates that engage in racketeering, targeted killings, shootings, extortion, the trafficking of bulk quantities of narcotics across international borders, and other crimes around the world whose impact is especially felt in Indian diaspora. In total, 37 defendants, including 2 defendants who ran their global crime syndicates while imprisoned in India, are charged across 3 indictments unsealed today. Those arrested in the United States, 11 in California, 1 in Indiana, and 1 in Georgia, are expected to make their initial appearances today in federal court. 3 defendants have been arrested in Canada, and 1 defendant was arrested in Spain, and 7 defendants already were in custody prior to today's law enforcement operation. Law enforcement is looking for 10 fugitives, 7 in the United States, 2 in India, and 1 in Europe. As part of this investigation, law enforcement has seized approximately 1,000 kilograms of cocaine and 1 kilogram of heroin, along with $40,000 in cash and a dozen firearms. A total of 23 search warrants have been executed in the Sacramento area, and 11 warrants have been executed in the Los Angeles area. Quote, transnational criminal gangs who spread fear, drugs, and violence will face the full force of justice and the weight of the federal government, said First Assistant United States Attorney Bill Esseley. Working together, law enforcement in the United States, Canada, and Europe and Asia are determined to target and dismantle these criminal organizations wherever they operate. There's no safe harbor for these thugs. Today's coordinated operation strikes at the heart of 3 brutal transnational organizations that have terrorized families, exploited communities, and stolen lives through ruthless acts of violence in the U.S. and abroad, said Patrick Grandy, Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Los Angeles Field Office. Quote, we, alongside our partners, remain steadfast in our commitment to identifying these violent organizations, disrupting their activities, and ensuring they face the justice they deserve. The true measure of this operation isn't found in the arrests and seizures alone, said Los Angeles Police Chief Jim McDonnell. Quote, it's found in what they represent, a united commitment between the LAPD and our federal and international partners to relentlessly pursue those who threaten our communities. Together, we are dismantling organized crime, removing dangerous offenders from our streets, and making Los Angeles a safer city. The most effective way to combat transnational crime is for multiple law enforcement partners to team up and target criminals where they operate, said Royal Canadian Mounted Police Commissioner Mike Duham. Together, we disrupted the operations of organized criminals who used murder, cruelty, and fear to extort and control people in both Canada and the United States. We won't pause for long to reflect on the work it took to get this job done. We'll keep doing what we do best to preserve public safety in Canada, in the United States, and around the world. Lawrence Bishnoi, 33, of Punjab, India, a gangster long imprisoned in India, was a self-styled university student leader before tiring of politics and turning himself and his followers to crime, according to a 9-count indictment that a federal grand jury returned on July 1. In public, Bishnoi projected an image of himself as, quote, patriot, nationalist, and deeply religious individual through social media posts and interviews with news organizations, and used this public image to recruit members and associates to his crime syndicate in India, the United States, and elsewhere. In private, Bishnoi presided over a sweeping criminal enterprise that spanned multiple continents. Using contraband, cell phones, and other voice-over internet protocol devices smuggled into his jail cell, Bishnoi personally directed political assassinations, murders, shootings, extortions, kidnappings, drug trafficking, human smuggling, and other crimes committed by members and associates of the Bishnoi enterprise worldwide. The Canadian government in September 2025 designated the Bishnoi enterprise as a terrorist entity. To help manage the enterprise's day-to-day operations, Bishnoi delegated control to trusted lieutenants and regional leaders of the enterprise. These lieutenants and regional leaders included Satinderjeet Singh, 32, aka Goldie Brar, of Punjab, India, the North American leader of the Bishnoi enterprise, Rohit Godara, 37, of Rajasthan, India, the European leader of the Bishnoi enterprise, and Sukhraj Singh Kang, 58, of Punjab, India. According to the indictment, both Brar and Godara effectively spoke for Bishnoi and helped direct the actions of members and associates of the Bishnoi enterprise worldwide, including acts of violence committed by the gang's members and associates in the United States, Canada, and elsewhere. This criminal gang engaged in violent activity in each country in which it operated, including the United States, and used violence to cultivate a climate of fear, in particular in India and among Indian diaspora communities worldwide. The gang exploited this fear to extort its victims, hyping their violence and criminality through online videos and internet posts. Among the crimes alleged in the indictment is the assassination of a prominent political and religious leader identified in court documents as HSN, Hardip Singh Ninjar, from India's Punjab state and who was living in Canada at the time of his death. Bishnoi and Brar are charged with ordering this assassination, which occurred when two gunmen shot and killed HSN as he left a Sikh temple in Surrey, British Columbia on June 18, 2023. According to the indictment, the enterprise routinely targeted prominent religious, social, and political leaders with violence and used these high-profile acts to terrorize and extort members of the community. For instance, in November 2023, Bishnoi claimed responsibility for a separate shooting that occurred at the Vancouver, Canada residence of a prominent Indian actor and singer, and warned in the Punjabi language in a Facebook post, "No one can save you from us." Bishnoi, Brar, and Godara and others extorted victims via WhatsApp and other encrypted messages application by threatening violence against the victims or the victims' families. For example, Bishnoi, Brar, Godara, and other defendants attempted to extort victims in Los Angeles and Thousand Oaks, demanding in December 2025 and January 2026 that the latter victim make a $5 million payment. In addition to these extortion schemes, the Bishnoi enterprise helped fund its activities through international drug trafficking and stealing drug shipments from rival gangs. For example, in November 2024, Bishnoi and Brar oversaw the transportation of 49 kilograms, or 108 pounds, of cocaine that was intercepted in Redlands and was intended for shipment via long-haul semi-trucks from the U.S. to Canada. From the U.S. to Canada. The Americans are charging us tariffs for allegedly fentanyl coming from Canada to the United States. 108 pounds of cocaine destined to go from the United States to Canada. From March 2024 to July 2025, the Bishnoi enterprise stole a total of approximately 520 kilograms, or 1,146.4 pounds of cocaine in the greater Los Angeles area from rival drug trafficking gangs. The indictment charges Bishnoi, Brar, Godara, and 6 other defendants with 1 count of racketeering conspiracy, 1 count of conspiracy to interfere with commerce by extortion under the Hobbs Act, 6 count of attempted Hobbs Act extortion, and 1 count of conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, namely cocaine and methamphetamine. A 7-count federal grand jury indictment returned June 25 charges 17 defendants with operating a criminal enterprise that engaged in murder for hire, drug trafficking, kidnappings, extortions, weapons trafficking, and other crimes around the world, including in the United States and Canada. Jagu Bhagwanpuria, 38, of Punjab, India, a gangster imprisoned in India, is an associate turned rival of Bishnoi and founded his own criminal enterprise in India's Punjab state. The Bhagwanpuria gang operates as a transnational criminal syndicate headquartered in India, with members across the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. This group includes more than 1,000 members and associates worldwide and more than 100 members and associates in the United States. To expand its power, this group corrupted law enforcement officers in India and partnered with corrupt government officials, including to assist in extortion schemes. It also provides false information to law enforcement officers in India regarding alleged crimes. The Bhagwanpuria group used this false information to target perceived rivals and individuals that members or associates believed were cooperating with law enforcement, often triggering baseless criminal proceedings and extortion plots by corrupt Indian law enforcement officers against perceived rivals. This might be the first hint here that there is a link to government. When it says here to expand its power, this group, the Bhagwanpuria group, corrupted law enforcement officers in India and partnered with corrupt government officials. Because the line from the High Commission of India has always been that this is not happening whatsoever, not so happening whatsoever, and then later on, well, if it is happening, they're rogue elements. But there's no link to the current government. This is indicating that there might be some. Right. Now, again, line will be, well, they were government officials who went rogue, but this was an official government policy, and that might be harder to prove down the road. But we're getting further away from nothing wrong ever happened. This is all in your mind, and you have no proof, and you haven't proven anything yet. We're getting further and further away from that. According to the indictment in April 2026, Gurlal Singh, 22, of Stockton, California, a member of the Bhagwanpuria syndicate who is an illegal alien from India, threatened a victim and then provided the victim's name to a corrupt law enforcement officer in India's Punjab state. This ultimately led to the victim's father, and the victim's sister being falsely accused of the January 2026 murder of a victim in India identified in court documents as BS. It also led to the corrupt law enforcement officer in India extorting the victim and the victim's father in connection with that pending murder case. A separate member of the Mangwapuria syndicate, Gurdev Singh, 26, is alleged to have attempted to extort a family living in the Midwest while he was being held in ICE custody, including by threatening to quote, put bullets in your kids. Wow. The group funded its activities through drug trafficking, including through drug transportation subnetworks in Los Angeles and the Inland Empire, as well as through illegal firearms dealing. Garinder Dio, 40, aka Dr. Rocket, and Ritz Carlton of Vancouver, Canada, though not charged as a member or associate of this criminal group, allegedly helped enrich the group by purchasing bulk quantities of cocaine and heroin that were to be shipped from Southern California to the eastern United States with the assistance of members and associates of the Bangwapuria enterprise. This included the attempted shipment in June 2025 of 92.2 kilograms or 218.7 pounds of cocaine and 1 kilogram or 2.2 pounds of heroin that law enforcement ultimately intercepted. The indictment charges 1 count of racketeering conspiracy, 1 count of attempted Hobbs Act extortion, 2 counts of conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute controlled substances, 1 count of distribution of cocaine, 1 count of conspiracy to engage in the business of dealing in firearms without a license, and 1 count of possession of a machine gun. Ravinder Singh Danda, 57, aka Randy Rolex, and John Wick of Vancouver, Canada, Jaskarn Bangri, 50, aka Baba of Surrey, British Columbia, Canada, and Gurtesh Singh Smag, 43, aka Simba of Creston, British Columbia, Canada, and 8 other defendants are charged in an 8-count indictment returned on June 23rd, alleging they transported, smuggled, and distributed hundreds of kilograms of cocaine and methamphetamine each week from the U.S. into Canada. According to the indictment, Danda operated a drug distribution network that provided international smuggling services for bulk quantities of cocaine and methamphetamine to drug trafficking organizations, or DTOs, in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. He negotiated transportation rates and logistics with these DTOs and subcontracted the storage and transportation of these drugs. Wow. Weekly. Hundreds of kilograms of cocaine and methamphetamines each week from the United States into Canada. Maybe we should be charging tariffs. Just saying. The cocaine and methamphetamines were concealed and transported on long-haul semi-trucks from the greater Los Angeles area, including Los Angeles, West Covina, Ontario, Fontana, and Paris, to the U.S.-Canada border. Sometimes farm trucks from working farms were used to hide the narcotics en route to Canada. The indictment specifically alleges the shipment of 431.1 kilograms or 948.2 pounds of cocaine from July 23rd to November 2024. The indictment charges 1 count of conspiracy to distribute and possess with intent to distribute controlled substances, 1 count of conspiracy to export controlled substances, 1 count of operating a continuing criminal enterprise, and 5 counts of possession with intent to distribute cocaine. An indictment is merely an allegation. All defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. If convicted, many of the defendants would face a mandatory minimum prison sentence between 10 years in federal prison and life imprisonment and a statutory maximum sentence of life in federal prison. The FBI, the Los Angeles Police Department, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and United States Customs and Border Protection's Buffalo Field Office are investigating these matters. RCMP is conducting a parallel investigation into South Asian organized crime. Assistance was provided by Unidad Central Operativa de la Guardia Civil in Spain, Homeland Security Investigations Los Angeles, the Drug Enforcement Administration's Los Angeles Division, the Regional Narcotics Suppression Program, a specialized multi-agency task force that targets high-level drug trafficking and money laundering organizations operating in Southern California and managed by the Orange County Sheriff's Department, the Brownsburg Police Department in Indiana, the Pennsylvania State Police, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, or the ATF, the Philadelphia Field Division, the FBI's field offices in Buffalo, Sacramento, and San Francisco, and the FBI's legal attaché offices in New Delhi, Mexico, Madrid, and Ottawa. This case is part of the Homeland Security Task Force initiative established by Executive Order 14159, Protecting the American People Against Invasion. The Homeland Security Task Force is a whole-of-government partnership dedicated to eliminating criminal cartels, foreign gangs, transnational criminal organizations, and human smuggling and trafficking rings operating in the United States and abroad. Through historic interagency collaboration, the Homeland Security Task Force directs the full might of the United States law enforcement towards identifying, investigating, and prosecuting the full spectrum of crimes committed by these organizations which have long fueled violence and instability within our borders. And it says that Assistant United States Attorney Declan T. Conroy of the Transnational Organized Crime Section is prosecuting these cases. Each one of them has, this thing has a link for each one of the cases: United States versus Bishnoi, United States versus Bangwapuria, and United States versus Danda. However, those documents have not yet been posted yet, so there are provisional links. So that was the official documents by the U.S. Justice Department. According to CBC's Rihanna Schmunk, the article version of this is 6 men are facing charges in connection with the killing of a Sikh separatist activist in BC, a crime that fractured the diplomatic relationship between India and Canada when accusations arose that one country had orchestrated the high-profile murder of the other's citizen on home soil. Hardip Singh Nijar, 45, was shot dead in what appeared to be a highly coordinated attack as he left the Guru Nanak Singh Gurdwara in Surrey, BC, on June 18, 2023. A Canadian citizen, Nijar was a prominent local leader in the Khalistan movement, pushing for the creation of an independent Sikh state in India. 4 alleged hitmen in their 20s, all Indian nationals who arrived in Canada several years ago, were accused in 2024 of carrying out the killing. In 2026, 2 more men, including the leader of the Bishnoi gang, were charged in the United States with ordering the hit. Here's what we know about the accused in the case. The RCMP identified the following men by their legal names in May 2024, acknowledging they may also use shorter names or aliases: Karan Brar, now 25, Kamalpreet Singh, now 24, Karanpreet Singh, now 30, Amandeep Singh, now 23. The first 3 men are Indian nationals who had been living in Edmonton. The 4th lived in Brampton, Ontario, as well as Surrey and Abbotsford, BC. They all arrived in Canada on temporary visas, sources said, including some on student visas. Sources told CBC News investigators identified the first 3 men in Canada, quote, some months before their arrests and had been keeping them under tight surveillance. RCMP said they arrived in the country separately between 3 and 5 years ago, but would not comment further on the suspects' immigration statuses during a news conference in May 2024. Amandeep Singh, the 4th man, was already caught up in the Canadian justice system at the time of Nijar's death, having been arrested in Surrey, BC in March 2023, 3 months before the killing, for allegedly fleeing police. He also faces a firearms and drugs charge in Ontario. Sources said members of the hit squad are alleged to have played different roles as shooters, drivers, and spotters the day Nijar was killed. The men each faced charges of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Police believe the first 3 men plotted with others on plans to kill Nijar in Surrey and Edmonton between May 1, 2023 and June 18, 2023, according to court documents. Asked during a news conference in May 2024 whether the public should consider the men to have been guns for hire, police said more information would come out in court. Quote, the evidence will show the roles these individuals played, said Superintendent Mandeep Mukher, the officer in charge of the RCMP's Integrated Homicide Investigation Team. Law enforcement officials in the United States charged 2 more men in July 2026 with ordering Nijar's killing: Lawrence Bishnoi, the leader of the eponymous gang, and his alleged lieutenant, Satinderjeet Singh, also known as Goldie Brar. The indictment filed in the U.S. District Court directly accused Bishnoi gave one of the accused hitmen a photograph of Nijar and multiple addresses to facilitate the assassination. Bishnoi, 33, has been imprisoned since 2015 but has continued leading the gang from behind bars. Brar, 32, was described in a statement as the North American leader of the Bishnoi enterprise and remained on the run. And I've been hearing that there may be some requests from the United States to have them extradited to the United States, where if they were imprisoned, they might have less ability to be able to run the gangs from the cell. Canada-Indian relations have been on shaky ground since the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said there's credible information pointing to Indian government's involvement in the assassination plot, remarks that essentially accused India of having a hand in plans to kill a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. Trudeau's accusation shattered the diplomatic relationship between the 2 countries when it was raised in the House of Commons in September 2023. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government has denied ordering extrajudicial killings in Canada. Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar initially decried the Canadian allegations as absurd and accused Canada of harboring violent extremists. Prime Minister Mark Carney invited Modi to the G7 meeting in Alberta in June, saying it made sense to have the leader of the world's most populous country around the table discussing the big challenges. Carney confirmed he had spoken to Modi about Nijar's death and the ongoing prosecution. Sources close to the investigation also told CBC News that police are actively investigating possible links to 3 additional murders in Canada. 2 men with links to organized crime in India were killed after Trudeau's comments about India in the House in 2023, as was a young boy. Sukhdur Singh Gill, 39, was found shot dead in Winnipeg on September 20th, 2023. Harpreet Uppal, 41, was shot dead in his vehicle in Edmonton on November 9th, 2023, and Gavin Uppal, 11, was killed alongside his father. No one has been charged in their deaths to date. RCMP said they would not comment in May 2024 on the separate investigations in Winnipeg and Edmonton, but repeatedly noted officers in BC were coordinating with a variety of agencies in 3 to 4 provinces. So there you go. Kits and Cubs, a little additional detail on that. It's a story of major importance. From what I've been hearing on the news, it seems that Indian law enforcement has been cooperating with the investigations of Indian government officials. So despite everything that we are hearing on the public face of it from the diplomatic corps, that there's nothing wrong, that this is absurd, what we are hearing from our government is that, when we were talking to them about making future deals, and especially getting in maybe on a comprehensive free trade agreement, that some of these things would have to change if India wants to sit at the adult table, at the high rollers table, at the international poker tournament, at which everybody is cheating, as Belle of the Ranch would call it. Then there are certain things at the highest rollers table that are no-goes. And they need to prove that they can behave that way before they would get full admittance. That might be the underlying geopolitical undercurrent that is taking place right now. So even though the safe face portion of this is still that we have done nothing wrong, at least as far as that we know, it does appear that behind the scenes, the collaboration that is required is indeed taking place. Now, this might have a lot to do with the fact that the United States is running this, and the United States and India are also in a little bit of a fallout right now, and maybe India wants to get back in good graces as much as one can. But this is a significant set of charges and arrests and things of the like, and we will see what will happen as a result. The real focus will be on whether or not eventually there is a request for extradition, how the Indian government responds to that. But hopefully, as a result of this, that means that people in the lower mainland area, British Columbia and the Surrey area and all that, are feeling a bit safer. Of course, there could also be the opportunity for some retaliation action, because we've seen that was possible in Mexico with cartels, right? Personally experienced that. So I mean, I guess that could be a possibility. Maybe some extra vigilance over the next few days in case there is some type of a retaliatory response. But this is a major development, and again, it moves the ball forward, and maybe is a significant step that can start reducing some of that activity, because that must be absolute hell on earth to have to experience that type of situation where you're being extorted in that type of way. All right, kids and cubs, that is the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. Kids and cubs, if you would like to support us, you can do it by scanning this QR code, which will bring us to our YouTube page. If you're not already there, scan it, and there you can click our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. You can also click on the notification bell and select all so that you can receive notifications of when we have some content for you. That would be very good. And if you are listening on your tablet or cell phone fewer than 7 days from the original live broadcast, if you would swipe left on the comment section, you can find the opportunity to offer us some hype points. It's an opportunity for channels with smaller viewerships like ours to gain more exposure. The more points we get, I guess, the more exposure we get. So if you can help with that, and you can do that 3 times a week, that would be very much appreciated. And we thank you. If you would like to help us in other ways, Kids and Cubs, we do incur some costs to bring this show to you. I just found out that I might be incurring a couple more costs because there are filters that are good to removing the ums and ahs that I've been trying to do manually, which takes a very, very long time to get a podcast episode up. So I might have to get one of those, but that is going to be easily a $50 a month or more expense for us in addition to the platform. But it needs to be done. So if you would like to help us with that, we would definitely appreciate an enthusiastic expression of encouragement on your part in the form of a donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund. And you can do that via our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And there you can leave a one-time or recurring donation that you can stop whenever you want. You are not locked in. And when you donate through our coffee page, we get about 95 to 97% of your donation. You can also donate via YouTube, via Super Chat and stickers and memberships, and we get about 70% of your donation there. Or if you want to avoid the USCE Tech Bros and help us directly, a transfer from your bank to ours using our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, ensures we get 100% of your donation and nothing goes to the CE Tech Bros, which is a win-win-win. And we thank you for all the ways that you support us. It really does mean the world to us. If you cannot contribute financially, please do not worry, because the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that matter the most to us. And you can use that same email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, to send us your thoughts on the show, good, bad, or ugly. You can send us your requests for guest interviews on the True North Eager Beaver interview project. And on that front, Kids and Cubs, I am working on getting Mr. Dave Gray, our favorite foul-mouthed economist, to come back to the show to discuss a little bit about Alberta separation, the Alberta pipeline, maybe broader issues of the economy, maybe either federal, national and global, given everything that's happened in Iran. So hopefully we'll be able to have him on the show very soon for some discussion. But we're in the talks. So and he's a good friend of our show, so I think we'll be able to manage to find a time. But yes, to let us know if you have any guest suggestions, if you want to send us any questions about politics you would like us to answer, or questions about the show, and of course to send us your good news story for when the doom scrolling becomes just too much and we want to read some good news, because we like to share in your joy just like you share in ours. Thank you so much for all of that. Of course, you can reach us on our socials at True Eager, at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge, also on the Shitter, True North Eager Beaver. On Facebook, we have the Beaver Bite Substack. We have the Damn Fam Instagram. No, the Damn Fam Substack. No, the Damn Fam Discord. Yes, the Eager Beaver Instagram by Kit Uncover, who often does our clips. And we have the Beaver Bites Substack. So all those ways to reach us. And right down here, if you're watching on YouTube, in our comments section, leave us a little something. That's the best way to get our attention. We do try to read everything you write, even though we're not able to answer everybody. And we thank you for all the ways you interact with our show, support us, share our content. All of it is very, very important. Every single interaction that you have with us adds to our engagement numbers, and all of that matters at the end of the day. So we thank you for all of your help. You're doing a lot to keep us going, particularly as we are learning new ways to do things and transitioning in a lot of ways. Seeing the potential of the podcasts just needed to get these software upgrades to be able to get the product out much more quickly, because if I'm editing ums and ahs out of every show 3 hours a day, that's time I'm not researching the next show, right? And then the show goes down in quality. So this is a situation where we probably do. It's a good idea to invest a little money the $50 a month in order to save 3 hours a day, 5 days a week of time, and doing that. And sometimes lives get busy, and then you fall behind. And then ensure that we do have a podcast audio version out that does generate some money. And hopefully, after some time, whatever we generate from the podcast will at least be generating enough money to cover this. And then at that point, whatever comes after will be accretive to our business number and will help us to be able to expand in the ways that we hope to as we keep on growing in the future. But yeah, I tell you, this beaver's learning a lot of new tricks this year. Help! I'm nothing if not resilient. I'm nothing if not resilient, kids and cubs. So there you go. That's all of that good stuff. Words of wisdom. Well, I guess that has something to do with it about resilience, right? What was that word? Oh, darn. I wish I could remember the word the Governor General Mary Simon said the other day, which is like in the face of odds, don't give up. Ajunuat? Ajunuat, I think it is, or something of the kind. But yeah, that's what I'm feeling. At the moment. But yes, looking for that. Fortunately, I can't remember the word off the top of my head. But yeah, just keep on persisting. No matter how tough things seem, put your head down, just grind it out, and eventually you'll come up at the other end as the winner. Because democracy is something that you do, we're just going to bring back our favorite petition here that is sponsored by Elizabeth May and is a petition to call upon the House of Commons to not fund Stornoway as an official residence for the leader of the opposition. We're at 15,200 signatures now. This petition is open until July 30th. And I'm just going to put this up here. And again, I do not have the address top of mind, so I need to get it. But follow Charlie Angus's request to write our commissioner on foreign interference and transparency, and ask whether or not there should be an investigation of what the meetings between the Trump administration and the Alberta Prosperity Project, or those that want to lead the separatist movement. Because even though the petition on that is closed, you can still directly write to the commissioner. And hopefully I will find that address again that Charlie Angus gave during his press conference, and I'll be able to bring it to you in future episodes. But that is another thing that is on the list. All right, kids and cubs, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And when we come back, we'll have a little bit of news about some Canadians who make us proud. But before we do that, at the count of 3, can I have a little bit of audience participation and have you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, 2, and 3. Let me have it. Oh, yeah, that is the good stuff. And since you asked so nicely, here's a little cock-a-doodle-doo just for you. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, and I remembered what the word was. Ayunata. There it is. Ayunata. A little bit of news about Canadians who make us proud, kids and cubs. First, from the world of tennis. There we go. Unfortunately, Felix Auger Aliassime yesterday was not able to win his bout against Novak Djokovic. It was quite a battle. It went all 5 sets, with Djokovic winning the first set 7-6, 12-10 in the tiebreaker. Auger Aliassime taking the second set 6-3. Djokovic taking the third set 6-3. Auger Aliassime taking the fourth set 7-6, 7-4 in the tiebreaker, and the last set also going 7-6. And there's a 10-point super tiebreaker to end the game. Djokovic pulled that one out 10-4, which means that is the end for Canadians in the singles draw at Wimbledon. In the doubles draw, Gabriela Dabrowski and her partner Louisa Stephanie had a very pretty routine third round victory, against the number 14 seeds, and are currently playing in the quarterfinal at the moment. And I believe they are leading. They took the first set, I believe, and are leading in the second. No, haven't taken the first set yet, but are leading 5-1 in the first set. And then I believe the only other player that we had was junior girls player Nadia Lagaev playing in the doubles tournament. She had a match yesterday. Do not know if she won it, but I can take a little check here while I am doing so. And unfortunately, it would seem that she did not. So Gabriela Dabrowski, once again, the last remaining Canadian at the Grand Slam final, at the Grand Slams, I should say, playing in Wimbledon. And as well, I'm going to take a look to see if the playoffs for the World Cup of basketball have started, because Team Canada had won its pool. And yes, qualification. The matches have indeed started, but Canada has not played one yet. Their next one will be, nothing before the month of August, I guess. So we have to wait till August until we see what happens in the second round. All right, that's good to know. At the Canadian Open of Badminton, because we were talking about that yesterday, both Victor Lai and Michelle Lee got to the semifinal in singles, and that's where they bowed out in the tournament, but still basically a third place finish for both of them in the tournament. That will certainly do a lot for their rankings. And I believe that that's all we have from the world of sports. But of course, we have some of our recipients of the Order of Canada. So let's read a couple more into the record. We have Cecilia Benoit of Victoria, British Columbia, who is a scientist and sociologist, was recognized for her rigorous research and respect for the communities with whom she engages. Her work has informed policy debates on sex work, maternal care, and health equity. Her efforts to challenge stigma and elevate evidence-based research have helped move Canadian policymakers towards effective change. We also have Michel Bouvier of Montréal, Quebec, who revolutionized the study of G protein-coupled receptors through major methodological innovators in cellular signaling. A renowned researcher in building, he bridged fundamental research, translational science, and the biopharmaceutical industry. A prolific author and internationally recognized mentor, he has trained hundreds of scientists and contributed to patented technologies driving therapeutic innovation. We have Ronald Cumming, who is a commercial law scholar who transformed secured transactions law in Canada and abroad. He's the principal architect of Saskatchewan's Personal Property Security Act. He guided its nationwide adoption and advised global agencies on modern lending systems. He is the author of influential texts. He shaped the Cape Town Convention and jurisprudence cited at highest courts. And then we have Niv Finchman, who's a veteran producer and founder of the Rhombus Media. Niv Finchman has shaped Canadian cinema for nearly 5 decades. His acclaimed films, including The Red Violin, which is fantastic, Enemy, and Blackberry, have earned global recognition and major awards. A visionary and mentor, he continues to champion excellence in film and television. And finally, we have Alison Mary Keith, who has transformed the study of Latin epic through her groundbreaking work on gender and genre. University of Toronto classics professor and director of the Jackman Humanities Institute. She is also an acclaimed author, mentor, and leader who advances classical scholarship globally through innovative research, teaching, and service to major academic societies. And there you go, kits and cubs. A couple more Canadians of great distinguished great distinguishment. Is it distinguishment? Is that a word? Distinction, great distinction. I was thinking in French there, of great distinction and accomplishment who have made us proud and have received rightful honors as officers and a higher level of the Order of Canada. All right, that's all I have for you today. Amour et bisous, and we will see you tomorrow.